Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar discussing the theme of humanizing onboarding, support and success. Today we're going to be investigating how removing friction creates experiences that enable growth and keeps customers coming back. I'll shortly be being joined by our speakers from Aircall, Front and Loom to get the panel debate going. Next slide please, Juan. But just to kick off the session, I'll be your host, Clare Muscutt, and I'll be acting as the moderator for today's event, supporting you and our speakers to have the best experience with us today. Just a really quick little bit of background on me. I'm founder and director of a boutique customer experience design agency based in London, and I'm a huge customer journey geek. So I'm super excited to be hosting this webinar and to learn a lot more from our speakers today. It is an interactive webinar, so I'm really hoping for lots of action in the chat window. Next slide, please, Juan. Oh, not that one. Oh, the joys of technology. So we've had over 700 sign-ups for this event, and we can see that people are joining us from all around the world, and you're all coming from different areas like customer success, onboarding, support, sales, and customer experience, to name just a few. Apparently we've got 25 countries represented, so if you'd like to getting involved in the chat, would you mind sharing your name and where in the world you're joining us from, because I'd really love to see that too. So in terms of our webinar today, we're going to be discussing the topic for around 45 minutes. So throughout the webinar, please do feel free to make comments in the window about the conversation. And then we're going to open the floor for 15 minutes of Q&A at the end. So please make sure you add your questions for the speakers in the chat also. So really quickly, just before I introduce the speakers for today, I just wanted to set the scene and a little context from my perspective as a CX leader. Next slide, please, Juan. So this image basically represents the fact that when a customer decides to purchase a product, they've always got a goal in mind, and they believe that your product or service is going to help them to achieve that goal. But becoming a user really does need to be simple, and they want to realise the value that you've promised them really quickly. Especially if it's a paid service, they're going to have high expectations of both usability and experience. And similarly, when they need support to achieve their outcomes, they're going to expect that issues are resolved first time and at pace. And these days, with significantly digital journeys, in theory, you'd think they'd be friction-free, right? But on the next slide, we're going to see that quite often, unfortunately, customer experiences can look a little more like this, with lots of hoops to jump through, and you can see from the little barrier, the barrier's in their way as well, and quite often some very painful points. And I really do love this picture because it demonstrates that we give them mountains to climb to get their job done. So quite simply, on the next slide, you'll see that friction kills customer experience at a huge cost to your business. Bad CX often means baskets are abandoned even before checkout, upsells are going to be rejected, and subscriptions are not renewed. So whilst customers who had a good experience will seek out that vendor for 2 more years, 24% of them will. 39% of customers who had a bad experience will avoid that vendor for 2 years or more. And of course, you all know that that's going to lead to lost revenue and negative word of mouth. So our second to last slide before we kick off the panel debate is just showing that there's a huge opportunity for us to reduce those barriers to purchase, to lower the barriers to adoption, and to provide a joined up personalized experience. The usability's got to be really awesome and be jam-packed with value so customers can achieve their goals, but most importantly, it's got to be humanized. So on the final slide, before I introduce the speakers, you'll see a picture of quite often one of the main causes as to why the customer journey looks like that mountain with lots of hoops to climb. And today we're going to be exploring the root causes and potential solutions from a set of awesome businesses who have been using their own technology internally to ensure that customer journey looks more like the first one that helps the customer to achieve their goals. So now I'm going to introduce our wonderful speakers on the final slide of this section. Charlotte Passamard, who's Director of Success at Aircall, Matthew Meeks from Global Programs at Front, and Susanna D'Souza, Senior Manager of Support at Loom. Welcome, everybody. You all made it. Okay, you should just check that we can all hear your voices.
Hi, everyone.
Wonderful. We're all off mute. We managed it. Okay, so thanks so much for joining us today. You're keeping well?
Yeah, super happy to be here.
Really good.
Awesome,
Really
awesome. So
nice.
by
Thanks,
way,
Claire.
you're awesome. So by way of introduction, please could you tell us a little bit more about your company and what you offer? And we'll start with Charlotte, go to Matthew, and then Susanna, as that is the headline of the room.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Charlotte Passmart, and I'm really, really excited to be here with you all and with you, Claire, specifically. I'm currently Director of Customer Success at Aircall, based out of Paris, and I look after the onboarding and success teams for EMEA and APAC. So I've been in or at Aircall for a while. I think it's been about 5 years now. And it's obviously been a super exciting journey to grow from a company of 5 people to 350 now.
Wow.
So the role that I took in scaling this is growing the success and onboarding teams to now about 30 people. So just a little bit more about Aircall itself. We're a cloud-based phone solution, and we've got kind of 3 main objectives. Helping our clients use voice to drive their businesses, helping them also better understand their own clients, and addressing their clients or prospects' needs a lot faster than with a typical usual phone system. And this ultimately in the idea of making customer interactions and putting them at the center of conversations. Throughout my time at Aircall, sorry, Claire. Throughout my time at Aircall, I think we've helped a lot of businesses change their approach and start providing more really honest and genuine services, and especially in the last year. So I'm really excited to be a part of this journey with Aircall.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for that. Okay, Matthew, you're up.
Well, thank you so much, Claire. Super, super excited to be here as well. And thank you for that introduction, Charlotte. And I also want to thank the audience who is here in the chat. Love seeing an engaged audience. So please feel free to ask any questions you have to me about my experience. But I actually direct our customer success programs on a global scale for a company called Front. So Front is actually building the first customer communication platform that exists today. You might hear me refer to it as a CCP, but customer communication platform that is helping businesses power the heart of their communications. So really centralizing all of those different ways that a business might be communicating with their clients, whether it is via social media, via email, SMS, or even via phone, and making sure that we can build that customer journey in one platform and break down some of those silos that you were showing on that slide, Claire. So I have background and experience in helping manage account management teams, onboarding, customer success, and now I'm focused on the long tail of all of these programs. So all of our self-serve customers, building out those programs so we can reach all of our customers at scale as well.
Oh, brilliant. And I'm going to ask you lots more about that shortly. And last but not least, Susanna.
Yes, thank you, Claire. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm super happy to be here with such a stellar panel. My name is Susanna. I'm the Senior Manager of Support at Loom, and I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal. And what is Loom, you might ask? Well, basically, it comes down to video messaging for work. It's that simple. You can record your screen, your voice, and your face in order to create videos that you can share immediately, whether it's with your teams or with your customers. Looking back, I was the first support hire at Loom in 2017, and now we have a team of 15 really, really amazing people in our support team, helping our 10 million users worldwide. Collectively, we're about 120, I believe, at Loom, so I'm super, super excited to have seen the growth of the company. Our focus in the support team is really to create an experience that is efficient, educational, and human, both at scale with our free users and individually as well with our enterprise customers. So that's me. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome, and we're definitely going to be coming back to that word human shortly too. So Charlotte, just so we're all in the same place about what customer success means, could you just start by helping us with how you would define it?
Yeah, it's definitely a concept that doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. So happy to delve in here. So for me and for the customer success team at Aircall, it really means helping our customer reach their objectives. So I think, Claire, this is something that you mentioned was core to purchasing and to any behavior. But so the first thing that we help them do is really understand what their needs are. I think that's the really first step that we delve into with our client base. And then after that, it's really about making them understand the value that our product can bring them and how this would benefit their business, and ultimately convert this into a global positive experience. So an opportunity for growth from a client perspective, but also from Aircall perspectives. So for example, we see a lot of our customers that come in with our very basic plan and start using our basic features, but as they grow on the side, they grow with us as well. And so their needs for functionalities increase. And so our role as success managers and as onboarding managers is to see that need very, very early on and help them throughout the journey to kind of unlock new possibilities so that they can keep staying with us and still see the value as they grow as a business.
That's awesome. A really, really helpful explanation, because as you say, it's interpreted in lots of different ways. And absolutely putting the customer and their needs at the heart of success. It's amazing how many companies fail to do that and put their business goals at the centre of that. So Matthew, just leading on from that, how does the approach to customer success differ when we're thinking about the scale that you mentioned?
Excellent question. And I would say it also probably depends on your industry, on your background, and the types of clients that you work with. But a little bit of context up front. So we have the very high touch kind of white glove or VIP treatment that many companies have. And then we have that long tail. So thousands of different companies, tens of thousands of users. And it really boils down to also needing to think about how to be human for those users as well. Thinking about how do you take all of those very high touch models, approaches, that customer journey, and scale it with the tools that you have without having people be a ticket number or just sit in a queue, still making them feel that even if they are your smallest customer, that they are still the most valued. And so when we think about, at least up front, kind of our approach is starting with what do we want that ideal model to look like, and then scaling it basically for every bucket of communication, and realizing when do you need automation, when you need to leverage more tooling to be able to say, we can't hop on a phone call with this person, but how can we still give them the data and the ROI? And as Charlotte was mentioning, how can we show them, you know what, this is the next thing in our product that might actually benefit that customer based on the data that we're seeing. So really thinking through, first, what is that highest touch ideal model? And then how can we deliver all of those milestones across every part of that journey, whether you're our biggest or our smallest customer?
Yeah, that's a really, really great example. And I really like the way you defined kind of starting with the ideal and then scaling, working out how to scale that through different levels of contacts. That's awesome. And Susanna, coming from a slightly different angle, how do you see the role of onboarding and customer support in relation to success?
Yeah, that's a great question and slightly different angle, but honestly, so much value from Matthew and Charlotte's answers that it all comes together, honestly. At Loom, we consider the onboarding and the support experiences absolutely crucial to the success of our customers. So from the moment that they're signing up to Loom, literally each interaction that we have with them should be to educate and unlock value for them. And as Charlotte mentioned, to unblock users from recording and sharing those videos, to really be successful, to find the moment where they're like, oh yeah, this makes sense, I should continue using this platform. So the opportunity here is to figure out how to adapt onboarding to the nature of these relationships with our customers. For example, our enterprise customers require a more personalized, a more unique onboarding that's custom to their specific use cases. So they work with our success team directly, very high touch interactions, actual relationships being created between the customer and our success managers one-to-one. But for the majority of our other users, and there's literally millions and millions of them, we rely on our self-service onboarding to help them learn more about Loom. So we're definitely in a super, super privileged position because we can leverage our own tool, our own quick videos to onboard and support our customers along their journey, individually or at scale. So our product, our marketing teams, they use Loom videos for in-product onboarding, and then my support team is there to fill literally any knowledge gaps. So for example, a percentage of our onboarding, or our inbound, I should say, support volume is based on those onboarding questions, on those how it works, types of questions. So we try to answer these with Loom videos as much as we possibly can. This way, when customers are watching the actual video, they're not just learning about Loom as a platform, but they're also understanding the real value of recording those videos. We call it a Loomception, and we even have a saying coined by one of our senior support specialists, which is, we communicate with Loom, for Loom, by Loom. And I really, really love that.
That's so lovely. And I have to say, you've inspired me actually. I'm starting a new online membership community and decided our onboarding is all going to be done by video too. So
Oh, amazing. That makes me so
yeah.
happy.
Yeah, Laura, and it's going to be awesome. So we talked about a few moments of friction there, and I talked about it earlier. So I'm really interested to know a bit more about the typical points of friction you hear about in the customer journey, and then we can really get into the discussion about what's causing them. Who'd like to go first? This is an open question.
I can raise my hand and go ahead and start.
Go
So
for it.
one of the big frictions that I know many of the companies that we work with, before they come to front, that they say, this is why we're searching for a tool, this is why we need a new platform, is really that scale of communication and trying to adapt to that personalization for all of their customers. So oftentimes we can't always be in front of a video. And I know I've experienced this in my own life, maybe many of the folks in the audience have as well. When you're typing an email, sometimes forget that there's another person on the other end of that email. And so many of our businesses work with messaging, text message, email. And so really trying to have all of this communication centralized and make sure that their teams are positioned to actually know when is somebody sending us a text versus an email. So that way, when you're responding to the customer, you can have that personal experience, because oftentimes it falls through the cracks. You don't know who's responding to those communication, or maybe you just have so much of it that you're not actually getting to everything that you need to do in order to communicate with your customers.
Yeah, and I know kind of the growth that you experienced, that was kind of part of the reason, wasn't it, that you developed the product that way, because you had to use it to solve those problems happening as you scaled. Okay, who'd like to add to that?
I can add to that and take Matthew's lead, because he's absolutely right. I think in our case at Loom as well, specifically, we've been in a super privileged position to have doubled the team in size in 2020. And when we started the year, we had 50 people, and now we have over 120 wonderful colleagues. And this growth was all done remotely. So as Matthew was saying, communication can break down, especially if most people have never met each other in person. They don't know how each other work. No one has worked from the office in a year. So silos really can be kind of like created between teams, and you kind of like start working on your own, or you're not like communicating super well. So I think it's really, really important to keep information as accessible as possible, especially if you're working with teammates all around the world, which is our case. So what we love doing is we love documenting our customers' feedback and pain points, and share those videos with the rest of the team. We even ask our own customers to record those videos for us. And what we find is that hearing directly from the customers really just creates a ton of empathy with our product, with our engineering teams. And it's just really, really powerful to hear from customers directly and to just become an advocate for their wants and needs, really. This week, we're actually just launching an official Voice of the Customer Slack channel to create more transparency and visibility across the team in general. And one of our core values as a support team is to just really be the voice of Loom to the customers and the voice of our customers to Loom. So we're really excited about that.
Sounds super exciting. And I think I said I'm a customer journey geek. I'm thinking now, how can I apply that with my new startup business? And do you have anything to add there, Charlotte?
Yeah, I guess it's quite similar on the communication front. When I think about the team and my team where it's at today, I think the most challenging step is really handover of information. And where I see that kind of most precisely or in a most problematic or friction way is really at the stage of a handover. So for us, that really happens just after the point of sale. And it's really such a specific time where you can't really afford to have anything go wrong, because you have this client that's just purchased like a shiny new tool, but behind the scenes you have teams that are handling multiple clients at the same time, that have to handle multiple stakeholders and that have multiple tools to be dealing with. So for example, for us, it's Aircall, obviously Salesforce front to Tango. So all this knowledge, we need to make sure that the client is not repeating himself. They know who they should be talking to at each and every point in time, and they know ultimately how to reach their goals. So I think processes and tools and how they interact and integrate with one another can go a really long way there.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's definitely one of the most frustrating things for customers, having to explain why they're contacting you over and over again. So that's great. By the way, I've got the chat on my phone here as well. So some great questions coming in. Thank you, Victoria. Jean-Baptiste, Susanna from Erin, and one from Jack as well. We'll be coming back to those questions shortly. But we're going to move on to our next question in our debate. But keep adding those questions, keep making comments. We'd love to see them. So yeah, so in our conversations before we decided to have the webinar, I was so fascinated to hear about how you're using your own tech internally to resolve these challenges, and not just for customers, but also for employees, which is an absolutely fundamental part of customer experience, because without our employees and our agents being able to feel empowered to deliver great service, we're just not going to. So I think I know who might want to put their hand up first for this question. So Susanna, I'm going to go to you because I keep raving about Loom today. I use it myself to record presentations. I do lots of pre-recorded webinars for clients, but please tell us more about the amazing stories that you're using video to support your customers and employees to resolve these issues. I'd love some little examples.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's so great to hear that you're using Loom, Claire. This question is a really fun one for me because we're super biased at Loom, of course. We're obviously huge advocates of using video in customer communication, and we lean heavily on our own Loom videos to do the job here. So the why is just simple. Video helps us establish a more human relationship, and I know this webinar is all about that. And even if we're far away from someone, it's just more human when we're talking to them through video. And these days, that's all the time, right? So with video, we can keep growing our customer relationships, and we can be as individual as we want, or even apply this flow at scale. So before I spoke about how we use Loom, or video in this case, in our support requests to create educational content for our users during onboarding and answer those how it worked questions. But let's also be realistic, right? So you're probably thinking that recording a video for each customer that reaches out is really, really time consuming. And you're not alone in that. Like, we find that one of the biggest objections that keeps support teams from recording more videos is that they essentially, it takes time. And the time that they spend on that Loom video, it's time that they spend away from support tickets. So at Loom, since we've been doing this for a while, we've developed ways to become a little bit more efficient. So for example, we keep a shared folder with what we like to call evergreen videos that they are just ready to be used and shared with any customer. So it's a little less personalized than recording a video and saying, "Hi, Claire," at the beginning, and really going on for 10, 15 minutes. But we encourage the team to duplicate the video, add the "Hi, Claire," the greeting in the title of the video instead. And it's not the same thing as re-recording it and making it super, super personal, but it's definitely a step in the right direction when it comes to creating a more personal or human relationship with customers at scale and really being efficient with your time as well. We also have built-in videos in our saved replies or macros, depending on how you want to call them, that our team uses just with all of our customers essentially. And this is a huge time saver for the team. It acts as a reminder for them to use video with customers as much as possible, because when you're in the flow, you sometimes forget. And one final example here that I can also talk about is we also found that we achieve faster resolution times in our support requests when we use video, especially if we're sending really complicated technical steps in a video format instead of text. I think it's just easier for people to follow instructions if they see them on screen. I mean, it's true for YouTube tutorials on how to make bread, and it's also true for Loom videos on how to send us your application crash logs, right? So yeah, there's a ton of use cases for Loom internally, externally, with your teams, with your customers. And it's just about being creative on how you approach that task, essentially.
Yeah, and does it still stay as impactful when you're sending the file videos or did the impact drop slightly in comparison to the ultimately personalized one? Obviously not practical to do that, or did it maintain the same impact on satisfaction or experience?
Honestly, I think it maintains the same impact. I think it's just people love knowing that you took the time to send them a video. And sometimes it really also depends on the situation, right? If you're dealing with a customer that's more frustrated, or the situation has escalated to a certain point, you might want to take those 10-15 minutes and record a video that's specific to them. If it's more at scale, if the question has been answered 1,000 times, then that's fine to recycle. It's fine to keep your teams moving to the next ticket or to the next email. But yeah, people just love knowing that, oh, I got a video, like an actual video for me to watch. That's awesome.
And I think a few of my team might be watching today, but again, inspired by our planning for this webinar, I started, instead of like sending emails about like the objectives or our priorities for the week, started making videos, and they were all replying with videos. And in the sense of kind of like creativity and culture that we're starting this new business with has been fantastic. So yeah, I'm now a massive fan of video. So talking about videos, Matt, I really loved the video that's on your site from your client about communication management at scale. How is it empowering employees, that thing that I mentioned slightly earlier, the key to delivering awesome service? How is it helping them to deliver that kind of service at scale?
Excellent question, Claire. One of the things that we actually talk about in Front, and part of why our founders, our co-founders created Front, is to help people work happier. That's our mission, and that is kind of twofold. It's everyone who is using Front, we want them to be happier in their own job, but we also want to have very happy employees who are excited to come to work, excited to interact with all of their customers. And I feel so privileged to work at a company that we eat and breathe inside our own platform every single day. So not only if I'm using Front and I say, oh, this seems interesting, we should actually have a product feedback form that I can submit internally that I know is also going to be beneficial for our customers. I can send it directly to our engineering and our product team to say, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if we built custom emojis that people could react with? Because I know I wish that I could use them with my team. If I'm other companies, other teams are probably thinking the same thing. So it's really amazing to get to use it every day. I think the other piece about just using Front and making our team very happy and feeling empowered goes to Charlotte's earlier point about silos, where, as we know, there are so many silos in that customer journey, from sales to onboarding, from onboarding maybe to a CSM or to an implementation engineer. Maybe they're going to go just to self-service and then interact with support. The beauty of Front is you can actually take one conversation and just move it from team to team, all internal. So we're doing that day in and day out, where the deal closes, the AE can leave their notes directly for the onboarding manager and say, hey, here's the entire history with the client. Here are the 3 main bullets that you should know. And in that same thread, that onboarding manager can reach out and say, perfect, hi, I'm introducing myself. I have the entire history, the entire background. And so it's lightning fast. There is none of this, I have to re-explain why I'm trying to buy Front or what I want to implement. And the entire journey for that customer is so seamless across the board. And it makes everyone internal so excited, because they don't have that friction that they might have experienced at other companies, where they said, I had to go and look up the contract, I had to look up the notes just to see, why did this customer buy, what were their challenges, where are they coming from in order to use our platform, when all of that is just directly given from their teammates.
Can you just say it for me one more time again? What was your little brand statement about happy?
Oh, now it's slipping my mind. But part of why we made Front is help people work happier.
Help people work happier. Sorry, that's it. I love it. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. A lot of companies talk about it, but very few of them prove it. So it's great to have such an excellent proof point of that vision being a reality. And Charlotte, I saw that you've got such an impressive list of integrations at Aircall. You mentioned some at the beginning. How has connecting voice with different platforms helped customer success strategies?
Yeah, so I think echoing both Matthew and Susanna, we're also kind of big advocates of using our own services. So kind of having the same experience as our own clients. And so what you'll find at Aircall is that whether you're a support specialist, a success specialist, a finance person, throughout the whole company, from kind of CEO to anyone really, they're using Aircall to make their calls. And so if I think about that and how that comes into my team, it makes it very simple to kind of share information, and this really comes through integration. So it would be really, really easy for anyone from my success team to take a new client or to receive a call from a new client and straight away understand what was their purchasing criterion at point of sale, who is the decision maker within this account, when was their last support ticket logged, and what was the outcome, things like that are so easily accessible that you can almost create every single conversation to be really unique. So the bottom line is that through these integrations, whether you're a support specialist or a sales rep, everything is automatically logged in your help desk or CRM to remove any form of friction that you could possibly have while you're talking to either your clients or prospects. And you mentioned many integration. I was actually astounded because I think we're nearing the 80th right now, so and more, a lot more to come, from help desks and CRM to even kind of how to complement and make interactions more lively. So I don't know, telling or asking, knowing what the weather is like and where the person is. And making a conversation out of that is really driving that unique conversation. And that's what really differentiates us from our competition, is having that variety available when you're in a conversation. And that's where we see the most value over the phone.
Amazing, amazing. So I'm just gonna have to look down again because I've got my comments to read out, because everybody's been supporting what you're saying. Will just said, I like how I can make Aircall calls from front. He said it's not a question, but it's very useful. Thank you, Will. And then Kyle Ward said, I work at a company that uses front, Aircall and Loom. With tool saturation, it can be at times some overwhelming, but the best tools are to be used for specific use cases. Cool. And then Amma, also another Loom fan, said it's helped me a lot in my role and as a product manager, and I use the videos to send errors to my QA team too. So thank you everyone for your comments. Please do keep them coming in. Looking forward to the questions. Already seeing there's some brilliant ones arriving. But I think the last word that Charlotte had mentioned was human, and this is the main topic of debate for today, and the most challenging thing in customer experience when it comes to digital. So a key word for discussion today is humanizing the experience. And having spent so much time with you recently, I know you all talk about it with passion. But what does it mean for you and your brand, and how do you see technology supporting this aspiration? Who wants to go first? I bet I can guess.
I don't mind jumping in here because I love this question. Would that be okay?
Go for it.
Sweet. So I think that by now everyone has picked up on the fact that Loom is all about empowering people to communicate more effectively through video. And video is just such an expressive format. It's so human that if you're not able to be there in person, video is really the best next thing, right? So what I'd love to do today is share a story of something that I'm super proud of that we did last year during the first few months of COVID. The context here is that our support team was just not ready for the massive spike in volume that we received when COVID hit. It forced literally everyone to start working from home, start communicating online. And on top of that, we offered our paid plan for free to anyone in the education sector. So basically they could continue recording without any limits, and they can continue their schoolwork. So we were super happy with that, super proud of that. But also that meant that we went from like 2,000 support tickets to 12,000 in just a month. And we only had like 5 people working in support, which was crazy. So what happened next was that we had literally thousands of customers waiting for an answer for days. And that meant that our CSAT dropped 10 percentage points from 93 to 83%. And that was crazy for us. It had never, ever been that low, ever. And we really struggled because we wanted to get back to everyone, but we just did not have the resources to do it. So what we did was we leaned on one of Loom's values as a company, and we decided to lead with transparency. So using video, using Loom, obviously, I recorded a 1-minute video that was sent to around 4,000 people to basically explain the why behind the delay. I pulled up a chart with our support volume going up, and then I showed the photos of the 5 people that we had on the team, and we're working on getting back to everyone. And just most of all, I apologized. The response was great. All of a sudden, we were getting a ton of responses back saying it was okay. People understood. These were exceptional times. They had really appreciated the update. They thought it was very human, very genuine. So the explanation really kind of like went well. And this meant that we just encouraged the team to double down on the video recording. We went from 200 videos per month to 500 videos per month. And the best thing was our CSAT went back up to 93% only 3 months later, which was where we were before the pandemic. So I'm super proud of that. We couldn't have done it without the support team. Those 5 people are fantastic. And then everyone else that we hired since has just been doing a phenomenal job recording Loom videos, showing the human relationship to our customers. And I'm just so happy that we did that and it worked.
Oh, such a lovely story. I can sense your pride, and thank you for sharing the lessons from a really, really difficult time. Who would like to add anything to that?
I can go ahead and talk about how we think about humanizing experience up front, also how our customers are doing it. I think many people who are in this panel as well as on this webinar has probably heard the phrase, the customer is always right. Now, I don't necessarily know if that is true, but I do think that we should lower the barrier for customers to reach out to us as a business and really allow a personalized experience for them. And so one of the beautiful things about Front that we see with our customers is all of these businesses trying different avenues of communication that they've never offered before, whether it is logistics companies that are now using text messaging, that they've been so old school, they've only used email for their entire history as a company. And then to watch and see their businesses transform, because now they're allowing customers to reach out to them however that customer wants. And Front makes it very easy for them to say, oh, you actually just texted us 5 minutes ago, but we saw that message, now we're responding to the email that you sent us yesterday. So they can just have that very natural conversation and still allow it to be personalized to the customer, where however that customer is going to reach out to us, we can still make sure to give them that human experience. Okay. I think the other way that we think about it relates to that work happier piece. And Susanna, you actually mentioned this a little bit earlier, how you are thinking about bringing that customer feedback, that customer experience to the team. That's actually been something that has been core at Front, is really building that customer empathy across every division, every department. So we actually have a public inbox of all of our NPS scores, all of our customer feedback. So if you are on our support team, if you are a customer success manager, you're hearing that feedback every day. But if you're an engineer, if you're a designer, if you're one of our office managers, you might not be seeing what are these customers saying about our product. And so actually, as a part of all of our customer onboard or our employee onboarding, they go through that feedback, they respond to that feedback, asking questions, really building that customer empathy to make sure that we understand our customers and that they are the forefront of why we're building this business from every division, every department, to make sure that we're really humanizing that experience in every way possible.
Oh, that's really good to hear. It definitely resonated with me on that one. And Charlotte, you've mentioned so many examples of humanizing the experience from Aircall. Anything else you'd like to add before we have our final question?
Yeah, I guess for us, I mean, we're starting off with a little bit of a disadvantage, I would say. Everyone's kind of, when they think about poor customer experience, I think it's everyone's top of mind that, you know, they've called in to a call center and the agent was not helpful, or the connection was bad, and the kind of worst possible scenario, the line dropped just before they managed to get a hold of the person they were speaking to. So it's really important for us to clash with that idea. And I think it comes down to understanding where where it stems from. So the human element, how do we get that back? How do we get that back into conversations? So one of the ways, and I'll share a concrete example with very specific objectives later, but imagining you have someone within the support team, imagining his name is John. If he receives a call, but he doesn't know who it is, then after picking up the call, he wants to transfer it, but he's kind of stumbling around to find the right person. He doesn't really know. It's a bad customer experience for both John, well, not John, but John as client and John as well. So we know how that ends up. It ends up with a negative or a poor score in the CSAT, for example, or in the NPS. But so what we did was really clash with that to create a phone that's friendly for anyone to use. So John likes to use it, but he also likes to use it, as someone in the audience says, in his CRM. So front was the example from the audience, but also on his iPhone. So he can pretty much take his conversations anywhere. And he knows straight away who he needs to direct this call to and talk through the case prior to passing that on. So I think that's the really bottom line, and it really comes through when we have clients coming to us, and a kind of very specific example of that is Job and Talent, who came to us asking or rather expecting that their NPS improves while transferring to Aircall. And basically what we did was really help them collaborate over their growing global employee base. So I think now they're over 100 globally, and we're providing via their phone conversations better visibility there. As well as kind of giving them the vision of all their channels, so 360 vision of all their chats, emails, and phone together in all through all of their integrations. But beyond that, it's really about kind of providing them with the means to be agile in their decision making. So for them specifically, it meant that they were tracking on a continuous basis their attendance and their pickup rates, which they tied in really closely to their NPS scores. And so now that they've kind of made this link, they're able to in a second make changes as soon as someone is not well or unable to get to the phone to their attendance sheet. So that's just one of the ways that we can address that via our technology. For any details, obviously happy to send more KPIs and cases across if needed.
Oh, that's so helpful. So I'm back on the chat again now. I'm not sure who, I can't see who said this, but it said, I'm sure you've all felt this, but every customer has a unique situation. Questions will be similar, but because they vary ever so slightly, I found it makes it tough to make generic or canned responses. And I think we're going to come on to this in a second about how do we deliver more personalized interactions at scale. But I've got just one final question, and I think the audience are going to want to weigh in on this one as well, especially the people that have come from a customer experience background. We did start to kind of cross terms then, didn't we? Words typically used in customer experience like empathy, metrics and measurements like net promoter score. Given the time, we're ready for our Q&A. Could you just give me one piece of kind of perspective, as I think that customer experience has traditionally been seen as very different to customer success, and they've been two separate disciplines, or quite often like with different teams. What do you think businesses should be doing differently to ensure we really do effectively converge that in the future? Take a pick. Charlotte, go first.
All right, I would say, so I spoke about handovers already, so I'll keep that one short. But I would say, and from experience at Aircall, I think organizational structure also does have a lot to play in this. So an example is at Aircall, while having the same exec heading both teams, we really managed to fluidify the kind of pre-sales, post-sales experience.
That's a great one. Matthew, go to you next.
Yeah. It's actually a perfect segue because Charlotte, I agree with you. We are now actually under the process of bringing support right alongside our success and onboarding. So we hired the same exec, and now basically at the starting of this quarter is actually working through that reorganization to make sure that we are completely aligned across all of the KPIs for those teams. So I think really thinking about the reorg and not having support in their own siloed world is so, so important.
Totally agree. And Susanna, last one from you. What are your thoughts?
Literally on the same page. Literally on the same page. We're actually looking for a director of customer experience as well to help us solidify the strategy around delivering excellent customer support at scale, but also on the success side with our enterprise customers. And more than that, we're going to have a very tight connection to our sales function as well. So all customer operations or customer facing teams are all going to report up to the same person, which I'm very, very excited for.
That's so interesting. I personally think the two have to converge, and customer experience thinking has typically not been keeping up with technology advances. So I think the question is, how do we learn from customer success and apply that to customer experience, and how do we not lose customer experience in the midst of sales? And I'm sure people will have an opinion on that one. So again, I'm gonna have to look down because I've got my my questions on the phone from the audience. But remember, audience, please do add any more questions you want to get asked. We've got about 13 minutes to get through some of these. So the way we're going to work this one, speakers, is you can just volunteer to answer the question. So okay, here we go. So this one's from Cameo. It says, I'm from an online retail business in London. We currently use Front and Aircall, and we're introducing Loom this quarter to onboard new staff while working remotely. Listening to your thoughts has made me reconsider, and I want to introduce video to our customers. Do any retail stores use these videos on their websites for customers to find and use, a bit like FAQs? That's one. Maybe for Susanna.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. We have all types of customers using Loom. Even, people from the education sector. We have universities using Loom. Literally every single type of industry you can use Loom, not only internally but also externally. So having your videos on the website as kind of like marketing products is a great way to use Loom. Or in your help center, because your customers are going to need to look up information. So having little videos here and there is just a great way to show your brand personality, who is behind the support team helping customers as well. They can be the face of your brand and really build that connection and that at that human side. And there's a ton of other ways. If you go to loom.com and look at our use cases page, you'll see and find a ton of information put together by our wonderful marketing team that just walks you through a myriad of ways of using Loom.
And Claire, if I could add on to that for a second for this individual. You can actually also embed Loom videos inside of the message templates that you're sending from Front, which I think is like a perfect synergy between all of our different platforms. And I think Susanna actually hit the nail on the head earlier to say, you don't have to necessarily make a custom video for the 5,000 people that you need to respond to that day. So having some of those templates pre-saved where you can still send that video to them to help those customers with those FAQs, I think is really great.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I'm an ex-retailer. I spent 5 years in supermarket retailing, and our FAQs kind of like frequently for the FAQ section and the customer self-service stuff. I just wished that we'd had something like that back then, especially when it came to usability of our self-service, in fact. So, okay, I'm going to ask this next question, I think, to Matthew. What have been the biggest challenges with global scaling across different languages and time zones and keeping the human approach? How have you managed this? Interesting question. Is that all right for you, Matthew?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So
I just saw the word scale, and you're now like the scale man. So
we think about global programs. I would say one of the things that we have not done at Front yet is actually think about the localization. So our primary business language is in English. We are opening an office in the APAC market this year. I am based out of Paris. So if somebody speaks Spanish, if they speak French, then that's great to work with those customers directly, and we'll make sure that they're partnered accordingly. But that's one of the challenges that we know we have coming because we have all of these customers around the world. So thinking about the localization of our materials as well as the actual localization of the product is extremely important. I would say that's probably challenge number one. Challenge number two is thinking through the market differences that all of these customers are experiencing. Working with people in EMEA is going to be very different than the types of stories or the narratives or the case studies that we're sending in our American offices. And so just having to really A/B test a lot of the time to see what's resonating with the market. How can we say that this customer story is actually from a customer in Europe, making sure that we're telling other European customers, look, this person who has the same global restrictions, they're in the same industry, in, even thinking of Brexit recently as a global challenge, actually point and say, look, this is a customer, they are in the UK, they had no problem onboarding. So making sure that the team is also enabled to know what resonates with those markets is also important, and that we have the content to enable those teams.
So definitely ask Charlotte this question because you've got EMEA in your job title.
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with Matthew on all fronts. I mean, we're there. We opened an office in Sydney, I think officially launched this week. So we're actually at that point where we have opened new hubs because of this localization need that we felt was needed now. And yeah, no, on all separate fronts. I mean, it's very even from an onboarding perspective or from a pricing perspective, different countries adapt really differently to pricing and strategies and how they interact. One thing that I like to refer to is that let's say our Latin markets are a lot more responsive to personalized relationships versus our northern markets are more like let's get it over with, let's move forward together, but email's fine. Whereas, our Spanish customers are happy to talk to us on the phone every now and then. But yeah, it's very different. It's definitely considerations that have to be made. And then it's a question of when is the right time, because, most of the time we do have resource constraints.
Yeah. And like you say, both of you mentioned like really quite different cultural differences depending on where you are in the world as to how people like to communicate. It's very important for customer experience. So then the next one comes from Sophia, and Sophia has asked to all of us, what are some of the aha moments you've seen in customers' experience during high touch onboardings, and how do those moments inform your processes? Excellent question, Sophia. I like that one. Who'd like to choose that to go first on that one? We all have an aha moment.
I can talk a little bit about what we saw at Loom, like from the very, very beginning. And essentially, we were astonished to find that whenever support teams were using and sharing videos internally with, on Slack, engineering teams would pick those up very quickly and be like, well, this makes sense, because support teams would just report a bug with a video. They wouldn't just send 1,000 steps, have the engineer just go through that. And then whenever you would have the support and the engineering teams just both using Loom, the level of people or the number of people using Loom within that company would just increase. And those would be our referrals. So it would be engineering and support. And once we knew that we had those teams using Loom, that was a company that we could just very easily infiltrate. So that was a very interesting aha moment for us, that the value of Loom can be unlocked based on the persona that starts using it, and then communicated throughout the entire company as well.
Nice. Anyone else?
Yeah.
We've got 4 minutes left and we've still got quite a few questions.
Go for it, Matthew.
I think the big aha moments for us up front with the high touch onboarding, when it relates to kind of that help people work happier, is actually having teams do internal NPS surveys before they are implementing the software, through the implementation, and then at the end. Because what end users start to realize is, oh wow, I was doing all of these things, I wasn't happy because it was taking me so much longer, it was really hard to use these tools. I think when they're switching tools, talk about just change management in general, but then after you start to see success, to have all of the end users say, my life, my day is so much easier because I'm on these platforms now that I know how to use them. That was just such a win to watch admins have their own teams give them feedback, as opposed to us telling them, hey, you'll use this, it will be amazing, just to have their team tell it to them directly.
I love that. And while we're on that subject, Jack, who's asked quite a few questions, thank you, Jack, for being so engaged. Susanna mentioned CSAT and Matthew NPS. Why have you chosen these methods of measuring success? And I'm just going to keep my mouth shut on this one because I've got a lot of opinions about these metrics.
Susanna, I'll probably turn it over to you first for CSAT.
Oh, thank you. So we actually use both. We use NPS as more kind of like a product success metric versus a support metric. And we use CSAT to basically understand if an interaction with a customer was successful at that point in time. It's not about Loom as a product, but it is about the interaction with the support agent. So CSAT for us just determines how happy or unhappy someone is based on that interaction with support. And it tells us what we need to improve and potentially scale as well. But Matthew, I'm sure you have a ton more to add here on the NPS front.
So actually, it's the same at front. So NPS is really that product piece. So how likely are you to recommend front as a product to someone else? We do also use CSAT to measure the engagement model with our support team. One of the challenges that I will say is helping customers differentiate the two, because what can tend to happen is a customer might have a really poor experience, or they might be frustrated with something that is a feature that they want that we're not building, and they might actually relate it to their experience with that customer support rep, where they say, you know what, we don't have that, it's not currently on our roadmap, but thank you for the feedback, we'll make sure to deliver it to our product team. And they'll say that the CSAT was horrible. And so actually one of our challenges is how to actually identify those to make sure that customers, that we're helping educate customers on when to use what metric. I don't know if I have a good answer quite yet, because it's something that we still experience, making sure that they're. Oh, go ahead.
What does he say? But customers don't differentiate those parts of their experience, so you can't use your metrics to change their perception of your brand. Anyway, I've got one last question for Charlotte, and we've only got 1 minute left. So, so this one was from Sophia. I think. Oh no, sorry, Kelly. And Kelly asked if we've got. Oh, sorry. Do you have a system for communication with your second-tier customers? We offer a white glove service for our top revenue customers. How do you keep engaging your customers who do not bring in that much on their own? But when you add it up, this subgroup of customer makes up a substantial dollar amount.
Yeah, absolutely. Kelly. I mean, this is really, really important to us. So we've got kind of our top clients with whom we engaged on a regular and personalized basis, but then we use to state or to name it to Tango, which is a system that is very specific to customer success, to make sure that we are able to automate both content communication where it matters. So like if for us, integrations are a core part of what we push forward in value. So we could have detect automatically via the system anytime someone's integration has, let's say, stopped working or ceased, to send them an email in that regard. So being able to automate and being able to send or automate or make triggers and health of these clients has become really important to address this lower tiered clients for sure.
Awesome. I'm afraid that's all we have time for. We're bang on past now. So Huang, if you could just pull up our last slide with our speaker details on. So I'd just like to thank everybody for their attendance today and their contribution. If you'd like to follow up with any of us, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn and also drop us a direct DM. It has been genuinely awesome to host this event. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your fantastic insights. And thank you for our attendees sharing their awesome questions and comments. You have been a fantastic audience for us today. And also one last thank you and well done to the team in the background who worked to produce the event. So Adam, Olivier, Karina, Juan, we all thank you too. Big round of applause. So everyone, we hope to see you on LinkedIn and see you at more of these collaboration events in the future. We hope you have an excellent week. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Matthew.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Claire. Super nice to see you.
Bye.